a relaxing way to just let it sit on your desktop and evolve. The idea here is that eventually I'll have a way of making it sort of render the planet on top of your desktop like an overlay. So if you want, it can just sit there and you can, watch as things happen. Or if you don't want that, you can just every now and then toggle back to the window and see what happens. And yeah, so that is some of the basic ideas. So this is what I have so far. I haven't been working on it for too long yet, so you're getting to see some pretty early stuff. Eventually the idea will be your planet might start off frozen or in like a primordial Earth state with volcanoes and everything, and then eventually it can change over time to something that can support life. And as the simulation is going, like I said, you can let it just sit there, or if you want, you can go and play with it. As you can see, I've been playing with things here. I'm going to play with it just a little bit more while we wait to see if anybody else kind of joins the stream. And I'm going to just check here really quickly, see if I got one viewer. Okay. If you're joining the stream, go ahead and just say hi in the chat, and I'll see that. And okay. So this is the simulation here, and I have my like to track my tasks and figure out what I want to do next. I have this thing here. It's called Trello, and I've set up kind of like what they call a scrum board, where I have a backlog of all the things I thought of that I want to do or I think I need to do. Some items that I've moved to in progress when I think it's done, but like I need to check on something. I'll put it in pending, and then when I feel like it's done, I'll move it to completed. So far I haven't used this pending slot too much, but it might come in handy. It makes a lot of sense when you have like a team and you want someone else on the team to sort of look at the work and say, yeah, it's good. Right now I'm a solo developer, so I might not get as much use out of that. So I have this whole set of things. I want to create color palettes just to make the visuals interesting for players and for anybody that might catch an image on the internet and say, oh, that looks cool, I want to know more. Because right now I have where's Unity? The planet and the land is kind of the sandy color, and the water is this blue color. And I thought it'd be really cool to be able to change it up so you could have any kind of like red, purple, blue, green, yellow, whatever, pastels, really bright colors, almost monochrome colors, whatever you want, and just to be able to apply that to your planet and be able to change it on the fly even. This is kind of a technical thing. Improve water mass to height conversion. So I have, like I said, a simulation, and for every point in the sphere I have it value for how much water is there, and I need to be able to convert between like liquid water and eventually air vapor in the atmosphere, and then there'll be some water that's kind of soaked into the ground, so I need to like have good physically plausible ways of converting between those. Right now it's kind of a little bit arbitrary, a little bit haphazard, so I need to pick that. Of course, I need to choose a name for the game. I think this will be an ongoing one for quite a while. And as you can see, I've got a big list of potentials here, my brainstorm list, and maybe one day we can talk about that on the stream and get feedback on that. Evaporation of water into the atmosphere, and then the other way around to have it rain back down. So in the atmosphere, you've probably heard of pressure in the atmosphere, and that has to do with how much mass there is in sort of the, like, you can imagine there's just a column of air going up until the atmosphere ends, and the more mass there is, the more air pressure, and that is really important for weather, especially as it relates to wind, which is the next thing. Really interesting is the Coriolis effect, which affects the direction of wind and creates a lot of swirling patterns for like hurricanes and other storms. And it's due to the rotation of the Earth and the fact that the Earth rotates faster at different points on the surface because it's a sphere, and near the poles it's very thin, and near the equator it's fat. To improve the water rendering precision, I have some issues right now with the way I render water, where because everything's sort of triangle based, you get some little stretchy streaks in the image, and I want to fix that eventually. And then there is particulate matter. I want to eventually have the idea of like you can have like ash and soot or smoke in the air. That especially relates to volcanoes. And I know another thing I forgot to add here that I'm going to do now is actually greenhouse gases. I call it CO2 in the code, but it really could be any kind of greenhouse gas. I want to do lava. I think that'll be really cool, because I want it to really seem like it's changing over time and that cool things are happening. So going through sort of like different phases of a planet's evolution, I think will be really cool. So you could have, like I said, that primordial Earth state where it's just volcanoes and there's no life and it's rock and lava and that's about it, and all the oceans have boiled. To further states on where eventually life might form in the seas, and then you have plants on land, and then somehow animal life. Plate tectonics, just another thing to try to like keep it changing up. If you can shift the land around based on those plates, I think it'll keep it interesting. I already talked about being able to have it as sort of an overlay on your desktop, so that's what renders a transparent window is all about. As I was editing the terrain, sometimes it was actually hard for me to when I was looking directly down at it, tell how high the terrain had actually gotten. So I thought if I add some sort of fog, it can help as you're using it to tell like the depth of things and know how high you've raised or lowered the terrain. And then add more brush types. As I've edited the terrain, for example, I wish I could have a brush to just say like take all these areas right here and just level them out with each other. Because right now it's just sort of like you can raise a mound up or like push a hole in, and it's only a certain shape. And I think to really terraform, you want some more tools. And then one thing I have in progress, of course, is to work on the pitch. That's something that's really going to become important, because in a couple of days I need to submit that pitch. And then you can see there's some tasks here that I already completed. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start working on color palettes. And I'll do that in just a second. All this talking is getting me thirsty, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly grab a glass of water here. It won't take me long at all. Okay, I'm back. And let me just check one thing really quickly here. Make sure I have the right displays up so I can see if people are joining the room or what. Okay, so go back to Unity, go back to here, and then that's my code and my task. So I want to do color palettes, right? That's the idea. So I can make this terrain and the land and everything different colors. Eventually there'll be like vegetation and things, but for now I just have the terrain and the water. And to keep it simple, I'll focus just on the terrain right now. So the way that I want to do this is I want to have some presets. And in Unity you have this thing called a scriptable object, which you can edit in this editor here. They call it the inspector, where you can like set numbers and assign different objects to different other objects and move numbers around and check boxes and all those things that you do on computers. But they don't, unlike a game object which exists in a scene or can be a prefab that you have to instantiate into the scene and actually do anything with. They're not objects that exist in the scene, they're just sort of data that lives in your project. And so it's nice to be able to separate that out so that it's like I have multiple different color palettes, and then I can quickly swap them into my planet here in the scene and reference that data. So that's what I'm going to do here. And so I'm going to create a folder, and I'm not sure what I want to call it exactly. That's always the stupid, annoying part with coding. But I think I could call it presets or just palettes or data. Let's go with presets. And then under that I'll create another folder called color palettes. And I think that's how you spell it. I'm actually just going to check really quickly. Yeah. Alright. So that is where my color palettes are going to go, but to do that first I need to write some code so that to represent the data structure that is the color palette. So I'm going to go to my scripts folder, and I already have, I put that in scripts. Let me move that. I should have had that at the root level. Okay, scripts. And I can create a folder here also, I guess, called presets, except there won't be a subfolder because each script in this class will represent one of the subfolders of the other presets folder. So I'll go here and I'll create a C# script, and I'll call it planet color palette. And that's going to open my code here, and by default it turns it into this sort of, they call it a mono behavior. It's a thing that kind of runs on your objects in the scene, but I don't want it to be that. I want it to be a scriptable object which contains just data, and delete that stuff that Unity auto-generated. And it looks like a couple of people just joined the channel, so I'll quickly explain again what I'm doing here. So I have this planet simulator game. Let me save that. And it's meant to be a cross between like an idle game and a god game and just something relaxing. I call it the only game in which you have a pet planet. I also call it an interactive idle game. And the idea is that you set up this planet and you can terraform it like I'm doing here, create different land shapes and raise it up and create, I'm going to create some like little ponds here, or if you want you can make them kind of connect back to the ocean. I like to play with that sometimes, forgive me. I find it pretty fun. And then so once you set up your planet, then you can just let it run and simulate, and you can let that run for hours, all day long, whatever, and you can just let it kind of sit on your desktop and check back in every once in a while and see how your planet's evolved. It's kind of inspired actually by, I'd say I feel pretty good about it being something that people actually want to play because of the success of a game called Mountain. That is basically just have a mountain in space, and like you don't really do anything in this game, and just stuff changes with your mountain, and coffee cups will fly in from space, little trees will sprout up and stuff, weather will happen. So I'm going to do something that's more interactive than that, because that has really almost no interaction. Hence you can terraform your planet and then have this really cool simulation that's happening. I have this mesh representing the planet with a whole bunch of different points, and it will simulate at every point on the planet, what's going on with the weather and everything. That's the idea. And I've just gotten started, so I haven't gone that far, but you can see I have my planet, and it has this kind of tan sand color and the blue water, but I thought it'd be cool to have different types of colored planets to make it interesting more to players, to get more variety, and also when people see screenshots, and also as a developer to be able to quickly iterate and see what are good color combinations to use. And that's what I have right here in my task tracker. I have this color palettes thing that I'm working on in progress. Another thing that I would probably like to talk about on the stream is actually the pitch, because that's something that can always be refined, and actually have to submit that pitch online for something in just a couple of days, so I should really work on that. So if we don't get to that today, then probably tomorrow. And so back to the coding. By the way, if you've never seen this before, this is called Unity. It's a game engine, and it allows you to create 3D objects, put them in your scene, and here's sort of the list of objects, and this is what the scene looks like, and I can do it in shaded mode or wireframe mode, and this is the actual running of the game here. And then I can write code to make things happen. So I need to represent a color palette that I can use to swap out the colors for the land. Right now the land has some properties associated with it, three numbers, red, green, and blue, that represent the color. But what I want to do actually is, instead of having those represent red, green, and blue, I want them to represent a choice of these different options in the color palette. So I'm going to create 3 colors called Planet Color 1, Planet Color 2, Planet Color 3, or even just make it sort of, instead of separate names, just sort of a list of them. So I'm going to call it terrain colors. Actually, I won't make it a list, because I have to strictly control the how many of them there are. But do I really? Because I'm the one editing all this stuff, so yeah, I'll make it. Okay, so something about Unity is, I don't want to get too crazy into the coding, but these are just different keywords. So basically I have a list of colors, and I'm calling it terrain colors, and so I put that there. And so now Unity, you can see in the corner here, now that I edited the code, is compiling and reloading everything. One thing is, if you reload the code while it's running, it messes up the game, so I have to hit stop and then play again if I want the game to start running. So in my color palettes folder, I'm going to create I believe it's in this menu here where I can create the scriptable objects. It's been a little while since I actually messed with these, so I might have to quickly do a search in my handy friend Google. Unity scriptable object. And bear with me for just a second. I think it's going to be really cool once we get the... Oh, I have to create... do this command so that actually adds it to the menu. So I think that should add it to that little right-click menu. Let me check here. Ooh, something's happening. I guess somebody just subscribed. Woohoo! And if you're watching, say something in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. and answer any questions you have, bounce ideas back and forth. So I'm gonna check out the document. This is a lot of what you do when making any kind of software. Really, is you gotta check the documentation, make sure you understand how to use it. Thought for sure it would show up in this menu somewhere if I added that. Oh yeah, here we go. Create scriptable objects, planet color palette. So there it is, and remember I added that little, we call it a variable. It's basically just like a place to store data, called terrain colors, and there it pops up here. So I'm gonna give it 3 because I said earlier I had the red, the green, and the blue, but now they're gonna be like weights for the different, or like factors for the different colors that I want to pick. So I'm gonna start off and just give it something crazy like a purple, but like more of like a desaturated, maybe kind of pastel purple, and then something that goes with that. I kind of want to. There's this tool for my phone. Let me see if I have installed, called Adobe Color. I had it on my old phone, but I got a new one recently, and it doesn't look like I have it. But maybe I can find like a color palette generator online. Cool. Let's see what this does. Start the generator. Okay. And I'm just going to use this to pick my 3 colors, so I have some colors that kind of look good together. Hit spacebar to generate color schemes. Okay. I pick a color to lock it. Click on the hex value. Okay. Wait. Okay, I can type in my starting colors, which is kind of what I want to do. And then I can adjust some values on them. Cool. Or I can pick from images. That's awesome. Different shades of the color, and then finalize your palette. So, God, the internet's just gotten so awesome these days. Oh, and there's a question. Is this going to be like an idle mobile game? Is what D Mooseman asks. Idle, yes. Mobile is kind of a little more up in the air. My primary target is actually for desktop, because the idea is like you're working or browsing the web or whatever, and every once in a while I just want to check back on it, check back in on it. And with mobile, it's like people kind of like use it quick and then put it away, and I don't want to, like, if this were just constantly running on your phone, it could get the phone really hot and burn your battery, because it's doing a lot of simulation of the planet in the background. So I still have some things to figure out, like how could I adapt it for phone, but right now I'm focusing primarily on just making it for desktop. And the idea is you start your planet, you set it up so it's like interactive, but then most of the time it's like an idle game where you just kind of let it do its thing, and then you can check back in on it. Hey Justin, how's it going? Glad to see you on the stream. So right now I'm doing some stuff trying to figure out some color palettes that I want to apply to my planet, because right now it's kind of like a semi-realistic thing where it's got blue water and you can make land, and it's kind of sand colored. But I want to try to get crazy with it, basically. Okay, I finally got through the tutorial. I have to sign up. Let's not do that right now. So if I hit spacebar, I can have it generate different color palettes. And I want to get something, yeah, kind of like this. So let me adjust this one. I want to make it a little brighter, not really more saturated, but just a little brighter. And I'm gonna lock it. Is it locked? It's locked. Okay, and then that should regenerate the other ones. Kind of like this too, except I want to make that one a little less saturated. I'm gonna lock it, and then I need just a third color. I don't need a full set of 5 colors. And so let me kind of like this light pink here. Let me lock that one to see what I get with the other one. The yellow could be woo, met my goal, yeah. Alright, got up to 7 follows. Sweet. I'll have to start a new goal soon. Let me try to see if it gives me any more colors that I kind of like. But I think the first three are kind of the ones that I want to... Ooh, this dark red could also be cool. Or like, I don't know what you call that, like a burgundy kind of... I'm not good with color names. Mauve. Let me go ahead and lock all of them in case I accidentally hit the space bar. So I wanted to do these two, and I don't know, what do you guys think between this like pinkish color and this more dark red color? If you want to say something in the chat. Would be good for streamers. I know a lot of mobile communities play games like that, or Super Meat Boy. Hold on a second, I'm trying to read the comment here. Super Meat Boy while searching for games. Oh, I guess there's like a new version of Super Meat Boy that's an idle game, because the one I knew was like a super hardcore platformer that I can't imagine like doing anything else while you're playing Super Meat Boy, unless they're just sort of like going back and forth to avoid, just to change it up a little bit. Let me just double check there aren't any more questions in here. Been following me since 2013 when you got Paperbound banner. Oh, awesome. Oh man, that feels really good, man. I had a lot of fun making Paperbound, and there's actually a new version of it on Nintendo Switch, but I'm just now starting this, and I have a lot of love for that game, but I'm just now starting this new project. But good to have you in the stream, and I hope to hear more from you. Oh, I gotcha. So like so I see, searching for games like you're in matchmaking, and it takes 20 to 30 minutes. Jeez, I guess because they have to get super precise with matching the levels. Because like I don't really play MOBAs, but I play some other competitive games like Rocket League and some Overwatch, and like there are just so many gradations of how good you can be. Like I've been playing Rocket League a long time, and I'm pretty good, but like the pros would still wipe the floor with me, And I've been also playing Overwatch for a while, but I'm terrible at it. Like, it's kind of embarrassing how bad I am at Overwatch, considering how long I've played it. But anyway, I don't have a chance to check out that YouTube link, but oh, cool! Thanks for putting the link to Paperbound Brawlers for me. And yeah, if you guys have any preferences on these colors, I'll try to see if you say anything in the chat. But otherwise, I'll just pick these first three, I guess. 2,000 hours in Rocket League. Holy crap, that's more. I mean, I thought I had a lot. I think I'm at probably like 1,300 hours, but 2,000, wow. Pink for the win. Okay, Max says. Alright, so let's actually go with the colors and plug them in here. So it's got these RGB values down in here. They're in a hex code, but I don't know if Unity allows me to. Oh, yeah. So is that the right thing? Yeah. So yeah, tools for making things have just gotten so nice these days. Like this was probably made for someone who does like web development or some other type of art, maybe even someone who does photography, or that does interior design. I don't know. Like, well, I mean, it was made for anything, and but like intended target audience. But here I am using it to make a video game. Okay, so I've created my thing that says, okay, this is a color palette, and I've plugged in my 3 colors, but the game's not actually doing anything with it yet. So we're gonna get a little bit technical here. So first, I actually need to assign that to my planet. So I have this thing here that it represents the planet, right? I can move it around, and there's what we call a script on it called planet. And if I go to that script, it has a bunch of data and then a bunch of code that does instructions. And what I want to do is be able to have the planet reference my color palette. So I'm going to come in here, and where do I want to plug it in? I guess I'll just put it right here. Planet color palette. Yeah, so now it has the color palette, and that's just sort of like saying, hey, I know where this is. And so now there are a couple more steps because this is all happening right here on your CPU, but I need to get it to your GPU, your graphics card. And so there's a spot down here where you set render buffers, and then I thought I had a spot where I set other shader parameters, but I guess not. So I'm going to create a new function. A function is basically just like a set of instructions that you can sort of issue to the computer. And so, for example, and it gets kind of layered, so I have this function here that Unity calls called update, and just every frame it'll execute whatever is in there, and then in there I can have that execute other functions. So it comes here, oh, let's do late update, and then set render buffers, and then it does all the instructions in here, which just kind of set up some of the rendering data to actually display that planet. And so I'm going to create another thing here called set shader parameters. So the thing that actually, like, you have little programs that you write, like mini programs that run actually in the graphics card, whereas this one, like I said, runs on the CPU. So I'm going to make one of these functions called set shader parameters, and then whenever this runs, it's going to do all the instructions here and then all the instructions in this one. And so in that, so I have this material is kind of what's mapped through the object to its surface, so it knows like how to display it. And in that material you have these different parameters that you can control. An example actually is I can come here in the editor and look at it, and this is my material. I call it Earth Test 01, and I have like different sliders I can move around and change things. A good example is the displacement scale. So I can like sort of draw land on my planet, and if you look at it, it kind of raises up, and I can like adjust, does it go really high or not so high. And then there are other properties that affect like lighting and other things. So that's what that is. Yeah, and this is in Unity. Oh, you ready for Rocket League? Sure. Or if that's not what you meant, you know, whatever you want to play, I'm down to play. So anyway, I need to send this data to my shader, to my material. So I have my terrain render, and I'm gonna say that there's gonna be let's say a color array. Actually, no, it doesn't really need to be array. I'll just say set color, and I'll call it just terrain color 1, and I have my color palette dot terrain colors 0. Actually, it might be a little simpler to. Sometimes you rethink how you're going to do stuff. And I'm just going to call it terrain colors. And does that work? Yeah, okay. So I've said, okay, the shader is going to have this thing called terrain colors, and I'm just passing the data through it. But I haven't actually updated the shader, which is that little program that runs on the graphics card, to do anything yet. Oh, Planet Garden. Ah! Yeah, I'd love to get like a early access thing in your hands, whoever wants to play. Right now it's pretty basic. It doesn't really have much of the simulation. There is actually a little bit of temperature simulation, but it's pretty basic at this point. But if you want, I can actually show you some of that. So I have these like sets of data that represent different things. So like I've set aside space right now for like, this is air properties. It has temperature, like how much water is in the air. It's like wind speed, except a lot of this, like, I'm not doing anything with it yet. But also for the land, you have like how high up and how high or low it is, the temperature, amount of water sitting on the land, and I haven't done anything with vegetation yet. But I have done a little bit with temperature, and so I can go ahead and pipe that into the display output as sort of a color. So go to the surface shader, right now I have, where is it? So this is what you call a pixel shader, and it basically affects the color of every single point on the screen for that object you're rendering. And I have this little thing that I call debug output, and if I enable that, it sort of overrides the normal stuff to do whatever silly thing I want to do. So the heat, the temperature is actually stored in this thing right here that I call surface properties 1.y, and it has to compile the shader, and then when I run the scene, okay, the heat is kind of gray. And also I can make my planet, it has this functionality to sort of rotate. Oh, I'm in the scene, I'm not in the game. So I'm going to draw a little land here. Just, am I drawing? Oh, something happened. Oh, because the color palette's not assigned yet. Okay. So I have to make sure I hook up all my data, otherwise stuff goes haywire. So in my planet, I have this spot here for the color palette, but I don't have anything assigned, so I'm going to assign my planet color palette, and now it should run properly. Okay, so now you can see it actually heated up, and the sun right now isn't, or the planet's not rotating, so it's like getting a bunch of heat all on one side. But what I can do is set the planet to start rotating, and I'm going to draw on it just so it's a little easier to tell that it's rotating, so you can start to see the train pop up, and as it rotates, the part that's hot kind of changes as the sun heats it, and then stuff falls in a shadow. And you can see it's got kind of like a long tail, because like it doesn't immediately get cold as soon as it's out of the sun, you know, it takes a while. And I have the surface temperature, and it might be more fun to actually just draw that in a slightly different way. So I have that's the temperature, and I'm gonna actually make it look red first, so you know, red hot, right? And then I have this thing called cell shading that helps kind of like you see it in like individual steps as opposed to this super smooth gradient that looks kind of cool and looks kind of science-y and weathery. Say 15 steps. Let's see what that looks like. So yeah, you can. Oh, let me make it red there. So that's the land color, right? And you also have the air color, which is in. Where's my planet script? And it looks like somebody said something. I'll answer it in just a second. Temperature. Air properties 1.x. Okay. And the reason I can do, like you can see there, like every little point on this mesh. Alright, shaded wireframe's what I want. It's even hard to see because you can see, and it's rotating. Let me pause it. So like, there are all these little triangles. And every point is simulating all this stuff. And the reason I can do that is because it's actually doing all the simulation in your graphics card as opposed to your CPU. And the graphics card is made for pumping out millions of triangles, millions of pixels to the screen. So it's really good at operating on huge data sets. So that's really a cool thing that Unity has exposed to you to be able to play with. Anyway, so I lost a little bit of my train. Oh yeah, air. So now we're going to look at the air temperature, and I also have some stuff, so you can see the air temperature looks oh wait, this is the air temperature, yeah, a little bit different from the land temperature because it has different properties of how it is affected. Like I'm doing a semi-realistic way of calculating it. So here's the air temperature again, and then I also have a thing to make heat transfer between the land and the air. So right now it's at 0, but if I kind of make it not 0, sometimes you can see it change. You saw there was a little bit of a shift there. Right now it's not super interesting because I don't have wind and stuff yet. But anyway, that's some of what I'm simulating. But to get back to the color palettes, after I look at these comments here, the weather here, it's hot in California right now. Mars, a distant crimson orb that has always signified war and bloodshed to mankind. What is that quote from? Sounds like an 80s movie maybe. So I'm going to turn off this debug output so we can see the normal stuff again. Okay, so there's my planet. And so right now the planet, oh, I did a zoom thing of some type. The sun, it looks like the sun is moving, but actually the planet's rotating, but our camera is fixed to the planet, so it doesn't look like the planet's moving. But if you look at it in this other view, you can see, right, this wireframe thing represents our camera. I mean, not the wire, this white boxy thing represents the camera, and it's spinning around to match the Earth, or the planet, whatever planet this is. We need to apply our color palettes. So to do that, so right now I have this, I remember I said that like the red, green, and blue is like that tan color, right? But what I want to do is something different with that. I want to go back to what I called it in Planet. I had that thing that was set shader parameters, and I have something called terrain colors. So I believe that is how I declare it. Let me double check here, make sure that compiles. Okay. So now I should be able to just, as a test, swap this out for, just say, the first color that I have. And it should be, I think it was this color. Hey Blake. How's it going? Oh, Red Faction. Oh god, Red Faction Gorilla. Red Faction Gorilla is still one of my all-time favorite games. Okay, so let's see what happens with that. Oh look, and now it's that purple color. Perfect. I'm on stream, so like I expected something stupid to go wrong that I wasn't thinking of, and I can make it the next color. And everything got kind of a little bit crazy there, I think, because I let it pause for a second, maybe, I'm not sure. Go back to that first pink color, yeah. Oh, what's interesting is I was expecting it to apply just to these little islands that you can see, like, you know, right here, these islands. But the way in the rendering, the water is sitting on top of land. So even there, some of the color of the land is actually coming through. Now if I make the water deeper, then you'll see less and less of that land color. So that's why it was affecting even the ocean water. But if I make it deeper, it gets, you know, a little bit more back to that normal dark blue color. Where's my paintbrush? So I have this little thing I can make it bigger so I can sort of draw a really big hole here. And actually, I'm going to stop the planet from spinning because it's messing up my ability to draw. So there's my planet, and I'm going to make a big hole. And you can see how the water simulation, like I drew a really big hole in the earth and it sucked the water down, and now it's slowly, water from all over the earth is flowing back into that to fill it back up, and then eventually it'll get back to like a sphere shape. But I have this really big hole that I just built there, and you can see that that is actually less affected by the color of the land than other stuff because there's so much water between your eyes and where the land is. So I have these colors, you know, normally you would say like, oh, color 1, color 2, color 3, but in programming you start with 0 instead of 1, so it's color 0, color 1, and color 2. And so that's looking at one color from the palette. But what I want to do is make it so that what was originally the red, green, and blue are actually like selectors for the different what was I gonna say? Selectors for the different colors, so you can have bits of land that are different colors. Because in real life, like not all land is the same color, right? Some places you have red rock. Some Florida's like all like whitish sand. Other places just have like more brown dirt, whatever, black. So what I'm gonna do here is start this off looking like total pitch black, and then I'm gonna add in proportional amounts of those palette colors. What did I call it? I always have to, where is it? Go back and look at, make sure I have the exact right thing typed. Because if you're off by like a letter or anything, then it won't work. 0.5 GB times, sort of, I'm going to call this like a weight now, plus green plus some amount of the third color. And so what we're going to see on the screen is just like a blend of those three colors, but it's going to be kind of uniform over all the land because I haven't varied the per vertex colors of the land yet. So now you can see that's kind of like an average out color. So I've got the color palette applying. I just need to like change up the data. So I'm gonna do like a quick test in my, I can modify it. I have this what's called a compute shader that runs the simulation, and in here I can do like a quick cheesy thing where like one half of the planet is one color and one half of the planet is the other color. So I can say if where is it? Where's my vertex? Where's my position? Surface position. Actually, I don't want to do it in this exact spot in the code. I want to do it somewhere else. Okay. Let's say dot x is greater than 0. Then surf props. Well, wait. Surf props 2. Right. Yeah. Nah. Right. Yes. So that's going to select the first color in the palette. Otherwise, it's going to select, let's say, the second color. So now you can see that half the earth is one color and half is the other. I'm going to raise up some land here, and you can see that on one half it's like a teal color, and I don't know what happened. Something happened. I must have messed up one of, or maybe it's all the rotation, something, I'm not properly accounting for that. Yeah, I need to fix, I have a little bug there where when I do like what's called the raycast to see where the mouse intersects the planet, it's not accounting for the fact that the planet's rotating. So I'll have to fix that in just a little bit here. It shouldn't be hard. Or if I, just to test something here, what if I make it the third color? Yeah. But I want a more interesting color. I want maybe like a yellow or something. Or actually, let's try this one. Where's Unity? Where's my color palette? So there I have some purple land, and I also want to have color for the water. And the water is a little tricky because it's not directly just like here's the color displayed to the screen, because the way the water works is it reflects a little bit of light, but more than anything it absorbs, and that's actually how you get the cool, like, well, before I get into that, let me just try like to generate like a yellow color here. Oh, that's still locked. I think with all the stuff I did, like it doesn't want to give me a yellow. Huh, peachy. Oof. Let's just try something crazy. So now I've got some red land. Now one thing I'm noticing here is that because you can kind of see the land through the water, like changing the land color even affects how the water looks. So you don't want to have any like hard transitions, you know, it's always got to be a smooth transition even when it's under the water, unless I'd change something with that rendering. But anyway, let's make them more realistic colors, huh? Back to kind of what's similar to what they originally were. I forget exactly what I picked, but something in that vein. And I'm going to make everything just use the first color. So it looks more normal again. Okay. So the water is different because it absorbs light more than it is like the main primary thing. And I still don't exactly like that sand color, but here's a good example. So I have the land like in the center here is just barely rising above the water, and so you can see the sand. It might be a little easier if I look at it from the side. You can see it's like just barely above the surface. And then there's some land that's just barely below the surface, and it gives it that sort of turquoise color. And that was something that I wanted to get, you know. So I did some research on looking at like how light absorbs, water absorbs light, and what are some of like the numbers involved in that. And so now I can get like nice little turquoisiness around my islands. But if you have water absorbed differently, you'll get different colors, not turquoise. So I in my shader that runs like for every little pixel on the screen to give it a color, hence the name shader. Where is it? Surface shader. I have this thing called apply water. And apply water, it's not that complicated, but basically you look at like how deep the water is. And first I didn't have this line, but I kind of added that in there just to deal with some precision issues I was getting when I was doing this POW thing, because the numbers get pretty big because I'm doing a power of 1,000 here. But basically you look at how far it went and then use that as an exponent, and that tells you like how much light, the original light, was left in. And you can see like most of the blue is transmitted, almost as much green, and then even though this looks like a similar number, when you do exponentially, this like drops down way faster, and so you lose a lot of the red, and so you lose the red from the sand, and that's actually what gives you the turquoise color. Because if it was just like a straight crossfade, you wouldn't actually get that color. It would just look like it goes from sand color to blue watercolor. So this magic number right here is like a thing that I kind of plugged in first based off of like some stuff that I looked up online for like actual physical properties of water, and then tweaking with it a bit. So what I want to do is instead of just making these like numbers that I typed directly in here, I want it to go back to my color palette. So I have that palette thing, and I'm gonna have a new thing, and I'm gonna call it but I'm not gonna make it, don't want to make it a color, maybe like a high precision color, which actually color is a high precision. Color 32 is the low precision one. Right, because it should have floats inside. Yes, and these are precise enough types of data. So I'm going to call it the water absorption. I mean, I could even eventually do it where like there are different types of water in different parts of the planet, like maybe grew algae or something, which is actually not a bad idea. But for the time being, I'm just going to make it one single value for water all over the planet. So let's get some funky looking water, huh? So I need to plug that in, pipe that all the way through. So right, this is in the palette, and then it has to go to my script for the planet to do a similar thing here. Water light absorption, I'll call it. Except I can't type absorption. Yes. I'll use the same name everywhere. It's nice to be consistent. And I'll stop the simulation. And now, actually, I'm gonna take these values and make them the defaults, just so I remember what they are. And ignore these little F's here. It's just sort of, if you're not familiar with programming, it's like it wants that for this type of language. Maybe different water on different planets? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the idea. Arrays of color groups. What was I going to do with it? Yes, water light absorption. That's right. All data in the programming, you have these things called variables, and you can give them whatever name you want. So there I'm saying use that one, but I haven't actually created it yet, so I create it up here. Don't really need it to be a 4, it could be just 3 numbers, because I don't really use the fourth one is usually transparency or alpha, which may come in handy at some point, but at the moment I'm not using it, but I'll just leave it like that for consistency's sake. .rgb though, so I just went with 3. Okay, water light absorption. So there, I'm using that, and yeah, I think that's all she wrote. So let's try to run the game. Oh, it didn't populate the default value that I wanted. That's weird. Maybe there's something with scriptable objects where that doesn't actually work. But at least it's there for my own reference, so I can remember that number. I like to do 1 to 0. Ah, it went away. The alpha doesn't matter right now. But let's just make it a 1 just in case, just for the heck of it. Okay, so now my planet looks like it's rendering properly again. Yay! But now, if I tweak this red just even a little bit, it's gonna potentially make a big change in how things look. So you got a really dark green because all the red dropped out, and if I make it so it doesn't absorb any red, then all the red stays. So you can kind of play with these. Ooh, look at that, purple water. Now we're getting somewhere. Green water, it's a little trickier to play with it this way, so I might have some, I might make it somewhere where you pick a color at a certain depth of water and then it calculates these numbers based on that at some point, but this is a good starting point. Oh, and of course the two interplay with each other, so even that thing I just said doesn't really make sense because you don't know what color it's going to be until you include the land as well. So since the land's mostly green, it's really only the green color and the water absorption that's going to make a lot of difference. Well, I guess there's more other, it's not that saturated of a green, so there's still other colors in there. But yeah, now I have a weird, crazy looking planet with color palettes. It looks kind of neon. And a cool thing, one of the things I love to do here is basically surround some water. and then I kind of raise it up. Let me make my brush here a little smaller so I can be more fine detail. So you see that it's kind of hard to tell, but it's above like the ocean surface, and then I can raise everything up even a little more. And then I like to just watch that water drain out. And I can even do it even a little crazier. Let me make my brush bigger again. And I'm going to make like 2 separate pools, and I'm going to have the water, and one of them is going to be dry, and I'm going to have the water go from the dry one, the wet one into the dry one. So first I'm just going to create this little pool here and kind of get it nice and compact. Okay, so I have my neat little pool there, and then there's some residual water here it seems, so let me try to spill that out. So yeah, now there's a nice little basin there. You can see it maybe a little better from more of an angle. And right now I have my camera controls where we can just sort of orbit around the planet, but as I play with it I realize I wish I could shift up and down, so I'll have to probably adjust my camera controls. So make a nice little channel here. You see the water drained way deep into that little hole there. But anyway, so that was Weird Deer on the Radioactive Purple Planet. Well, I don't know what I'm planning to do for animal life exactly yet, to be honest, because everything's at such a planetary scale. Even I don't you could have really animals that you could see, but they would be so huge comparison, they'd be bigger than a city, if you actually think about it. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with animal life just yet, to be honest. But if I have some representation of them, it makes sense that they kind of respond to the colors of the planet. So that's a good idea. But definitely there'll be vegetation, and the vegetation might in some ways it'll probably just be the color palette that you select. It'll be a vegetation color. But this is still early days, so it's there's a lot to think about in the details. And so that's that task. So I feel actually pretty good about that. The only thing that I feel a little weird about is this thing's hard to control, but maybe I can make some sort of UI where you say, okay, what color do you want the water to basically be, and then it also knows the land color, except there is more than one land color, and then pick some values that work with that land color to give you the color you want. And then another thing actually that's worth trying is so this is the absorption, which is kind of the opposite of color, because when the color of an object you see is the light that it didn't absorb, and then it's reflecting it back to you. So I could do a 1 minus thing here to say to give it oh, I want my watercolor to be yellowish, which means it needs to well, actually no, the absorption is the way I'm doing it. I should call this transmission really rather than absorption when I think about it, because it's transmitting most of the blue, not absorbing it. So I'm gonna, just for my own sake, rename this as light transmission, and I'm gonna rename that everywhere. Of course, since I renamed it, it's gonna lose the actual numbers that I put in there, but that's okay. We don't really care about those anyway. what is in my palette? Oh, it did save the numbers. That's really weird. Did not expect that. So, okay, so I have the color palettes implemented, so what I'm going to do is save that to, I have a server where I save my work online so I can back up, and then I can go to old versions of it, see, look at changes. It's called Perforce. Did I do anything in the simulation shader here? Oh yeah, that's just for testing, so I'm not gonna actually save that to the server. And what is this? This is something I want. So I changed my scene, set up some stuff so that I could do that circle that you saw when I'm painting, which is kind of faint with these bright colors, but you can kind of see a little white circle. What am I planning on simulating on the planet? I know you mentioned wind and heat and that stuff, but what will that be affecting? So the main thing is actually so much is going to be driven by water. Water in liquid form, in vapor form, and in ice. So one of the things I was thinking about when I decided I wanted to make this was, I love to go outdoors in nature and hike a lot, and especially in the mountains. You know, I lived in Seattle for a while, and they have beautiful mountains, and Seattle is like a really wet, damp place, and then you go over the mountains and all of a sudden it's almost like a desert. And just thinking about how the landscape, the shape of the land affects the weather and the vegetation and the look of everything that goes on there. Where there's rain, there's life, basically, right? So all the winds will carry the moisture around, and then it'll deposit in different places as rain. So some places will be like barren deserts, and some places will be wet, and so might have like forests growing there. I'm in Seattle now. 10 out of 10 would recommend, especially for hiking. Yes, no, Seattle, like, I plan on going back because it's my favorite place. The winters can be long without so much sunlight, which is why you save your vacation days for the winter time. But I just love so much about that city. There's a lot of video game and tech and nerdy stuff going on, and also the nature around it is just some of the best in the world. And I've been a lot of places, and it's really good. So yeah, the wind and the heat. So yeah, the wind basically affects where the heat goes, where the moisture goes. You should actually see like clouds develop and storm systems. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I do want to think of some more things that it can ultimately affect besides just like, oh look, there are clouds or there's some vegetation, but maybe some erosion of the land, and it can affect I intended to simulate things like greenhouse gases, so like the wind moves around and then that can cause a concentration of different stuff in different areas. Maybe a volcano blows up and all that ash and soot goes in the air, and then the wind blows that around, and then that covers an area in just ash and soot. And all that wind simulation is based on temperature, on air pressure, and all these things that are interrelated. And my hope is that you look at it and you see stuff happening, like, oh yeah, that's what it looks like, cool. And then you go do some work for a little while, then you check back in on it later, like, whoa, like something totally different's happening now. And so there'll be the simulation part, like the physical simulation, but then I think I'll also have to have just some events that happen, like every once in a while, like something comes from outer space. Maybe you have moons and that affects the tides. So yeah, there's a lot of potential. I need to check in the new stuff that I did. So the way Perforce works is normally like you say, oh, I want to edit this file, ahead of time, but I'm lazier than that, so I just do this thing that's called reconcile offline work, where it just automatically finds changes for you. Meteor completely changes the landscape and weather. That is for certain, It's what killed the dinosaurs, right? At least that's what we're fairly certain killed the dinosaurs. And it's going to kick up a lot of. It's going to cut. If it's a really big one, it's just going to cover the whole atmosphere and a lot of. Like I call it particulate matter, which would be like ash and just dirt and all kinds of stuff, and that's would cause a really cooling effect on the planet for a long time. So life would die, ice would build up. So yeah, this is all my color palette stuff, all the files that were changed during that. So I'm gonna go ahead and check in that stuff, and I'm gonna check it in with my other changes too, because they're kind of interweave some changes. I like to try to keep it like this is this change and this is this change, but sometimes I forget or get lazy. So this is gonna be adding color palettes and this mouse. Circular mouse cursor projection. So while that's happening, oh yeah, I love these tools. I remember really liking the Adobe Color one for phones. So where are my things? So color palettes, I'm gonna go ahead and move that to completed. You can see all these other things I want to do. A big thing right now is working on the pitch. Actually, maybe before that, a quicker thing is, one thing I want to do is to choose a name. I don't know how readable this text is on the screen, but I have a bunch of sort of names I'm thinking of this right now. You can see I'm calling it Planet Garden, but I'm not sure that's the name I'm going to use when it's done. Pet Planet, I kind of like that. I thought it was kind of cute. The only thing about it is that I think people could maybe get the wrong idea of what that means, if like a planet full of pets, or like Pet World or something. Pet Rock I thought was like a funny pun, but I'm not sure if that's a thing that's gonna jump out at people when they see it on Steam. Pet Rock Simulator makes it a little funnier, I think, so maybe that could get some attention. One name that I kind of liked is just sort of like a simple name, was Terra, like Terraform, except I did find that there was a game called Terra, T-E-R-A, with only one R. So I would have to, if I go in that vein, I'd probably have to add something else to it, not just Terra. Adobe Color you still use for video stuff, yeah. Except they used to spell it with a K or something, but now they actually just changed it back to the normal spelling, C-O-L-O-R. Pet Planet sounds like it could be for children, yeah. Yeah, like Pet Rock Simulator, yeah, I think it's pretty funny. Galaxy Garden, I like the alliteration, it kind of just sounds nice. I like this garden word, except the only thing is that makes you think you're building a whole galaxy, but you're really just focusing on one planet at the time. Maybe there could be a thing where you see other planets you've created kind of going by in the background, although that would still just be a solar system, not a whole garden. Maybe it's just planet. That other game was called just Mountain, Planetoid. So these are some ideas I'm bouncing around, but maybe it's one of them, maybe it's something based on one of them, maybe it's something not even in this list that I ultimately end up going with. Galaxy Garden is catchy. DLC. The other thing about the garden is thinking a little bit about the future. There's another game that I'm thinking of as being the next one I make after this, where it's sort of you grow trees, and you can make them all kinds of crazy alien-looking trees or whatever. And so you can do stuff to influence the colors, the shape, how they branch, how thick or high they grow. And so I thought it could be Planet Garden and then Bonsai Garden or something. I'd call it. I'd have that sort of similar naming between these different games that are kind of similar. From the same company. Pet Planet Simulator Deluxe Esquire. So the funny thing about Pet Rock Simulator is it reminds me of Goat Simulator. I don't know if you ever heard of Goat Simulator, but it's this funny thing where because there are all these actual simulator games, right? First there were flight simulators, and then people came up with Euro Truck Simulator, Farming Simulator, a lot of stuff that I personally wouldn't want to play, but I know a lot of people like them. They're successful, and then Goat Simulator came, and it was sort of a joke on that, where you're simulating being a goat, except you're just like this ridiculous goat that goes around a city causing havoc, and there's nothing about it that's really a simulator, you know? It's just more of a sandbox game. Pet Planet Simulate Deluxe Plus. Alpha like Super Turbo Edition. Why don't they have? Let me look at it on Steam here, because you can see like you're just this ridiculous goat. And it was a thing that they made, like I think just like as a game jam or something, and then like it was just so viral that it went crazy. Like look at this. On Steam they have almost 40,000 reviews, so that means like they've sold millions of copies, because I'd say you probably have at least 30 to 1 buys to reviews typically. Although some, you know, that can vary from game to game. So yeah, those are some names I'm thinking of. Maybe the goat goes around your planet. So I got to work on the pitch. So let me know if you can read this text. This is kind of what I'm thinking about right now. So like often you want to be able to get the pitch out and just like essentially one sentence. This is technically 3, but like they're such short sentences that you could say it in like 5 seconds, right? And then there's like the little bit longer description, like because this is like the one-liner is supposed to hook you, like not really hook you, but like pique your curiosity. Go, oh, maybe, and then the description like fleshes that out for you, so you can have really a better idea of what it is. What can I do with this? I don't know how to make this full screen. I can read it out loud, but does Notepad++, can I? Okay, maybe this helps. Okay, this isn't the best formatting. I'll have to maybe figure out a better way to display this stuff. But basically the one-liner is a relaxing god game, an interactive idle game, the only game in which you have a pet planet. And this last line, the only game in which you have a pet planet, really came out of some Facebook conversations with my friends. And I think it's neat, it's catchy, and anytime you could say the only game, I think, you know, that can, you know, make people take a second look at it, basically. Q and E for the zoom. You know, to be honest, I'm like I use OBS Streamlabs. I don't know if there's a hotkey I can set up for that. I'll have to look at that later. So I'll have to look into later like how to zoom in on the desktop. If you have any tips, put them in the chat. So yeah, I don't, like this is, I think, like the most important part is that one-liner. I don't know what you guys think about these sort of like oxymoronic things. I thought maybe that would like catch your attention just because they're things that don't seem to go together. A relaxing god game and an interactive idle game. Let me know what you think about that. And also this one, the only game in which you have a pet planet. And then the gameplay description is a little bit more detailed. Let me know if you think it A, captures the gist, like gives people a clear idea of what to expect, and B, like sounds appealing. Use god powers to terraform a planet and then let it sit on your desktop as you watch it evolve. Interact as much or as little as you like. Maybe your planet will grow to support life. Maybe a giant meteor will strike it. Weather and atmosphere simulations will affect the look and life of your planet. I feel like there's like a little bit of like a rough transition before that last sentence. Like the rest is sort of like, I guess some general descriptions of like what you're going to experience. It meant to sound good, but I also wanted to like, I guess give a little more detail, like what it's actually doing to accomplish that. And so this is, I guess, a little more like this is more like user focused, and this is more like, hey, there's a simulation, this is what the program is doing. But I feel like there's a better way to weave that together. I like the only game where you have a pet planet. Alright, cool. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I have so far for the pitch. Also, where's that GIF? I made this GIF. If you saw it on Facebook or Twitter, I posted the GIF. I think like good GIFs could really help, raise some visibility for this game. And this one is just like, yeah, here's the cool simulation with the water draining. So I want to kind of incorporate some of that stuff into the pitch too. Maybe it will support life. Maybe a meteor will destroy it. Maybe it will support life, then a meteor will destroy it. That's good. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I like the comedy. So yeah, these are materials I'm including in the pitch. So when I pitch it, I do need to have a name for the pitch. So you see, Justin, you like Pet Rock Simulator, and I think you said you liked Galaxy Garden. Maybe I'll go with Pet Rock Simulator. Like, I don't know if people are gonna take that at face value and be like, "Oh, that sounds boring," or if they're gonna be like, "What the hell is that?" And it's gonna pique some curiosity. But the weird thing is, Goat Simulator is all the marketing all the marketing for it is funny because it's a funny game. I don't really envision this being a super funny game, more just relaxing and oh, look at that, that's neat. Either way, enjoy the weather and environment simulation sweep you away on a relaxing journey. Yeah, you guys are working together to fit stuff together. Let the weather, yeah. Yeah, I'm a little torn on whether I really like Pet Rock Simulator. I just don't know if the comedy of that jives with what the game is. I have to think about it, come up with an answer soon. So yeah. Alright, well I think I'm going to shut down the stream for now. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for subscribing, and yeah, I'm excited for this game. Pretty soon I'm going to try to get a publisher involved. And then a quick question. There should have been little on-screen animations when people followed. So let me know if that actually worked or not. Alright, thanks. And catch you next time. I'll be on at the same time tomorrow. Alright, bye.